Who's gonna do the one? Did he just start that, or?
Yeah, he, well, he went to college for it, he's done some really neat pieces, a lot faster too.
Out here getting busy work on
We hope so.
So I've got 5 o'clock on my phone, so I'll call the meeting to order. Start with our routine business. The Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall as always. Lisa, you want to call the roll?
Lance,
Here.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Here.
Skylar.
Here.
Everybody present and accounted for. We'll all join in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Second.
Move on to the consent agenda. All items can be approved with the passage of one motion, or they can be considered separately.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Then call the roll.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Lance.
Motion carried unanimously. Move on to the mayor's report, which is, I've already told my fishing story, so I guess there'll be no report for this one. So we'll go on to the appointments. First one, I would recommend that we recommend the appointment of Judy Walton to the Ainsworth Housing Authority to a 5-year term ending 8/7/2026. I believe she's will be replacing Jim Baker. He did not want to continue on, so that's my recommendation.
Move to approve appointment of Judy Walton to Ainsworth Housing Authority, 5-year term ending in 8/7/2026.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Call roll.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Lance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Next, we've got several for the Ainsworth Betterment Committee. First one was 3-year term. Recommend appointing Quinn Sheldon with term ending in 2024. This would be to replace, I guess, Renee Atkinson, and she did not want to continue.
I make a motion to appoint Gwen Shelburne with the term ending in 10/14/2024 for a 3-year term on the Ainsworth Betterment Committee.
Motion and second, any discussion? Call roll.
Skylar.
Aye.
Lance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Next, we have one of the student appointments. This is a 2-year term, junior, senior years. And I would recommend the appointment of Dakota Stutzman for a term ending September of 23.
I make a motion to approve the appointment of Dakota Stutzman for the Ainsworth Betterment Committee, ending in 9/15/2023, 2-year term.
Second. Moving second, any discussion? Call roll.
Lance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Yeah, there's 2 students on there, and there's a senior this year and a junior. They just rotate through. Josie Kanzer is the one who graduated and moved on to college. Last appointment for the ABC committee, another 3-year term. I'd recommend appointing Brian Doak. This appointment would end 2024, and that is to replace Chuck Osborne. Chuck also felt he had done his time and was ready to let somebody else take a shot at it.
Move to appoint Brian Doak to the Ainsworth Betterment Committee for a 3-year term with the term ending October 15th, 2024. Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Call roll.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Motion carried unanimously, thanks. Well, having no public hearings or old business, we'll move on to the regular agenda, item 6. And first on the list is to discuss and consider special designated liquor license for the Elks PPO number 1790 for the Pheasants Forever banquet to be held on November 5th at 5 o'clock, 2021.
So the form is in your packet for the local recommendation to the Liquor Commission. This has been an annual event at the community center here for a number of years. I guess I don't know for sure when it started, but. Any questions?
Pretty straightforward, I think. I make a motion to approve the special designated liquor license for Elks BPOE number 1790 for the Pheasant Forever banquet to be held from 5 p.m. on November 5th, 2021 to 1 a.m. on November 6th, 2021 at the Ainsworth Community Center.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Call roll.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance, Brad,
Yes. I'd say Ainsworth Conference Center. Does it matter?
Same. All right, thanks. Carried unanimously.
I know what that's in.
Next item on the agenda is to consider a petition regarding CBA feed mill dust. Is Troy here? Troy, you have something you want to present to us?
Well, seriously, I'm not sure what I'm actually proposing. I'd like to figure out if they could do something, or what needs to be done, or someplace to start. I don't know how many of you drive up down First Street. I had a petition and then I forgot to bring it with me. I had like 28 signatures on it, which is basically everybody in my block. I didn't go south of the tracks, which they are affected by it too. But to figure out some way to get them to fix the problem they have, that since they lost Bill Warden, the maintenance is just not real good. They have a blower upstairs on the east side of the building that, if you look up, it just blows a constant cloud of dust. The street at the end of the day is just covered in white, or whatever they're making that day. Their driveways are left open, so when they're unloading, and like today, there's a wind blowing through it, all that stuff's carried out. They've hauled off 3 of them big spreader trucks. This spring, they scooped out 3 of those loads from underneath just what was under the bin. And it's a lot, and it stinks. And I can't wash my vehicles because it does absolutely no good. There's lots of people in the neighborhood that have the same complaint. And like I said, I'm not sure what we can do about it, but I would like to see if we can investigate to have something figured out.
Sure.
Who we need to contact to.
Yeah, I think I've heard other complaints similar.
Yeah, of course, I live a half block to the north of there, and just one example was last Wednesday, I washed my pickup to go out of town over the weekend. And I was like, I washed it at 8:30 Wednesday night, went out to go to work Thursday morning, and it was just got a yellow film over the top of it. And I know I've been over and talked to the manager before, and I know Ann's been over there talking to him before, and it doesn't seem like they, I can't say they don't care, but it just seems like they don't care.
They're aware of the
They're
problem.
aware of the problem, and like I say, the previous owner making feed and stuff like that, I've lived there for 20-some years, it's never been this bad.
So it's a new problem.
It is a new
Yeah,
problem.
well, Bill Warden worked there, and when they took over, he quit. And so they didn't have anybody to do the maintenance, and of course, Bill, if it was broken, he constructed a piece to make it work. You know, and that's what he did all day long, was just keep things going. That blower was one thing that it continuously needs to be cleaned out. It hangs up in there, you know, of course, they're blowing steam and stuff, so that's moisture and it sticks in there. That one's one of the original to the building. That's the old system, and it seems to be the one they like to run. I don't know why.
This all this summer, you know, we could not open our windows at all to our house, because it would get that dust inside the house, so we went all summer and wouldn't even open our windows.
Yeah.
I'm just worried, you know, I'm down at Cottonwood, I'm speaking for that location as well, and that's well south of the tracks. And if the wind is blowing out of the north, there's a film, yellow film across all the vehicles out there, across our yard, everything out there is. It's not so much, I mean, the looks, of course, really degrades our neighborhood. For one thing, the value of our neighborhood is crud beyond belief because of that. It stinks. I also am very concerned about the air quality in our area especially, but across town, no matter which way the wind's blowing. It's settling across town in the local, you know, within several blocks of that thing. And it, yes, I realize that they offer a lot of jobs. I don't want to see anything bad come that way at all. I'm not about saying that. I do feel there is more that should be done to protect our air quality and the looks of our town, and just the smell of it. It really gets to rotting pretty quick with any moisture that sits on it for any time. And it sticks to the vehicles. You track it up and down the streets. You track it in and out of your house. You can't have a nice yard because the yellow just sits on top. And that, we've lived there 27 years. Never seen it this bad, ever.
Does that qualify for like nuisance abatement? I know there's one clause that's like if it's a problem to your health or something like that, which you argue if you're reading that stuff in.
Could be a health board issue.
Lisa looked at our city ordinances, and dust is included in those, but the problem with that is, the city, we don't have any definitions, we haven't defined what constitutes an issue. And however, Department of Environmental, I called DEE to ask, is this something, you know, is something like this under their air quality section? And the guy said, yeah. He said, if you can see dust, that is an air quality violation and we will investigate it. So all it'll take is one call to Department of Environment and Energy. It used to be Department of Environmental Quality. And they'll look into it. And I understand what Ann's saying about you don't want to hurt local business, but on the other hand, it sounds like it operated for many, many years without causing an issue, so it can still be done without.
I can speak, I mean, I work at CPA, I mean, not in the feed mill, but the appliance store. But I can say, you know, just from working there, there's a hard time finding and keeping employment. I mean, I think that, as I can tell, is kind of across the board, but I'm sure that's part of why I would assume that's part of why it's being an issue now versus, you know, back before, but.
I know they use a lot of restricted drugs, you know, Rubensin, BTC, all that stuff is blended in that feed, which is probably considered blowing out with that dust, you know. And been hauling stuff out to the dump, truckloads out of the dump. I think somebody said they got that stopped because of the fact that they had medication in it. But now they're piling it on the other side of the building, down by the grain bins. I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but I said, I'm with Ann, I hate to see, I'm not here to say we ought to close them down or make a move, but, I would like to see would like to see something done. I mean, I've been working on my house trying to make it better, but because of the fact that it's right there across the street, I'm never gonna get fair property value out of it.
So are you thinking that it's our responsibility to call, as residents of the area, to call the EEE?
You could,
Okay.
they'd accept a call from anybody.
As far
If
as,
you'd like the city to call, I mean, I think we could call, and I'd have no problem doing that.
as far as nuisance abatement, is that, that's something that has to be called in by a resident, right? Or is that something we can potentially look at?
Well, I don't know, I think if it would be considered a health hazard, I don't know that anybody would have to call in. And then you've already got a petition signed by many people.
Yeah, I can get that too.
Apparently, you haven't.
The other thing, Mike, I know, Brad, you said you come down to the office here, is anyone trying to call, and where is CBA actually? The next level up as far as.
No, I haven't. I did, please.
You've got a problem here if you don't wanna call the DEE, get on it. And that might get some attention, I would think. I doubt they want DE or DQ, whatever it is, looking into it too, so.
The city does have a board of health procedure that they could follow too.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no question it's a legitimate concern, and it needs to be followed up on it, I guess, if you want us to call, we can call.
I don't have any idea what.
So, I mean, as far as, I don't know if this is technically appropriate, I work pretty close to the regional CEO. I can speak with him and just tell him that, this is an issue that's been brought up. I don't know if I'd stop there, but that's something I can do, for sure, as early as tomorrow. Which might, like I said, to me, it's probably just a change in employment, somebody's doing the job that somebody else used to be doing, and they are doing it differently or something like that.
I know that they're aware of the problem.
Very
Is that
aware.
right?
We've been in there and talked very clearly and been offered 5 car washes.
Okay.
Didn't solve the problem.
Okay.
For me, it's not that my black Jeep is jealous.
That's what I'm saying.
It's that I like to work out in my yard. I like to sit out in my yard and read. But I don't like to mow my yard when it's too hot. I don't like to mow my yard when the mill is putting the feed dust into the air, because I don't like to breathe it in, and sometimes it just makes you feel nauseous.
I guess if they've been alerted, then I guess I don't see any reason why I should.
Well, I know this spring, they sprung a leak or something, I know, and I work at Crowder's across the street from it, and the trucks and our shingles and everything sitting outside had over a quarter of an inch of dust on it. They covered the ground with that stuff. And of course, my pickup was sitting at my house and it was just completely covered. And I took it down to the office, and that lady took a picture of it. She was gonna give it to the CEO, and I told her to have him call me. I would like to talk to him, and I never got no response of any kind out of him. I run into the manager of the mill down at the convenience store, and of course, he stood there and kind of looked at my pickup, and I was standing there talking to a gal in there, and he overheard us anyways. He gave me $10 for my pickup. Well, then my son pulled up with his pickup, and he gave him $10 and told us we could go get our car washed. But that would be an everyday occurrence if they'll be panning out tokens for the car wash for every day. If you don't want anything to happen, not part of this.
You have to block off calls.
Well, I'd be happy to call it, particularly if you brought me a copy of the petition. That would be,
Okay.
that's all the reason I need, I think.
I have a picture on my phone. I took one the other night when they were spewing stuff out. The lime dust is another thing, they send those in on pneumatic trailers, and when the bin gets about full, then it just starts blowing out the top. And I've watched them out there, when the bin got full, stand there and throw scoop loads of shovels full of it out on the ground, out from the top of the bin. So,
That sound good? Any other discussion or? Okay, well, thanks for bringing it.
Thanks, Troy, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to discuss and consider the Highway 20 project lighting option bids. I think we have about 3 choices, basically.
Right, so the city's cost, of course, is the difference of the cost of the normal pole, so many additions, improvements, enhancements, et cetera, are the city's responsibility. As you know, the first time they bid the project, they didn't receive bids, so they bid it a second time. This is the result of that second bid. They did 2 bids, obviously. They're perhaps a little high, but under the current climate of things, are probably to be expected. So the 3 options essentially are, the first one is just standard lighting plus festoon outlets. The festoon outlet is the electrical plug for the Christmas pole decorations. So I think that for sure is a must option for the city. That's not something that the city staff can do, and I would imagine for $6,000, it might be hard pressed to find anybody that would do 56 poles for $6,000. The second option is festoons plus flagpole holders and banner brackets. The banner brackets, if you recall, some of you weren't on the original council that decided all of this, but it's those double brackets that have like the vinyl long skinny banner on the side of the pole that'll say like welcome to Ainsworth or happy holidays, or you can change those out for different
Directions to the car wash.
different aesthetic. So that's what that would be. That bracket would probably face the right of way flagpole, face towards the highway. And then the third option is all of that plus coating the poles in a bronze paint.
A couple years ago, when we did do this, we decided, that's when we brought up bronze, and we voted to go that way, and now it's changed. Didn't we set some money aside in this budget to do
I think we were talking about, I think, seeing if the Betterment Committee, I think.
I thought we set some money aside too, and then we were gonna see if the Betterment would help us out, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, we set aside, I think, $25,000 to outlet poles in one way,
Okay.
shape, or form.
Then initially, they told you it wasn't gonna be a price difference for the bronze,
Yes.
and then they came back and said, no, that is.
And actually, the difference is about $50,000.
Yeah.
Well, that's for painting it at all, right? Or that's, so like,
The
this is.
middle, go ahead.
Sorry, so the 50,000, that's the difference between having an unpainted pole versus having a painted pole, painted bronze.
Correct.
So we don't know what the price would be for like painting black or something like that.
Correct, so I did ask Mark about that, if the council changes its mind on the color, does that matter? He said essentially that, well, of course you have the option to do that, at any time before they finalize anything with the contractor, but he couldn't guarantee the pricing, of course. If there would be a difference, I would imagine it would be minimal if there was a difference, but
Because the standard pole is just a galvanized color, if I remember right.
yes.
It's a galvanized looking pole.
And just keep in mind, probably whatever coloring you use on 20 will match on 7 in the coming years. So if you like bronze, it'll all be bronze.
It'll all be bronze, yeah.
If you like black, it'll all be black.
I just can't believe just the color is $50,000. That's just,
I wonder if there's any possibility of just painting it ourselves, probably not, but.
If think you'd have to have a special coating
Yeah.
to resist the weather.
I assume, yeah, this must be like an anodized coating
It
that
says
it's.
it's a high durable polyester resin.
We can't get our people behind bars anymore to do community service, so we can't have them hang them.
If you want to give the work comp on them.
Has the state of Nebraska accepted the bids for the Highway 20 project this year?
I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe they're waiting on the city's choice here, because that's, at the end of the day, it's all part of the bid package. So depending on what the city selects, that will factor into the contract award with whatever contractor is selected by DOT.
The bids look to be like 50% higher than the estimate, if I remember correctly. I think the estimate was $6 million for the project. The bids came in, the low bid is like $875. And that's what I didn't know if it's been accepted. There's nothing on the Nebraska DOT website indicating that the project's going forward.
Yeah, I don't believe they have been accepted yet, no.
Okay.
I took it, when my conversation with Mark was, he'd like to hear back from the city quickly. He'll get that information back to the state, and then the state will make their determination.
They rejected something similarly in Valentine that was way above their project estimates, so I don't know where they're at now, just getting a bid. They didn't get a bid here. I know they rejected the first bid for the work in Valentine, similar, right in the main area, because the bids came in well over estimates, so.
So then what they do, just rebid
They
it?
redid it, yeah, and they must have awarded it this time because they're starting some preliminary work.
I would mind, I just go on the assumption whether the ABC would actually fund part of that and getting the poles a different color and stuff, and, that $50,000 is, maybe split the cost with them, but we can't speak for what the ABC will recommend or anything like that either.
I'd kind of like to hear their opinion, because I'm kind of a cheap ass, so I hate to spend $50,000 on painting, but at the same time, like, I think there's something to be said about having a nice looking community, that when people drive through, they think, wow, this place looks nice. So, I mean, maybe it'd be nice to hear their opinion.
I know you drive down other communities and stuff, and I can't say that I've ever seen very many communities that got not bronze, just galvanized
Right,
light
right.
poles.
That's the thing, I think about it, looks really industrial, like really, I don't know, kind of like Norfolk, which is not my ideal place to emulate, but.
I haven't noticed the colors as much, but the banner brackets that a lot of the communities have look sharp when they have the different brackets on the non-street side of those poles look sharp when you go in. I guess I don't ever recognize colors, I guess, as far as something sticking out, but the banners for sure look very nice.
Thinking down the road though, let's say 10, 15 years down the road, somebody runs into one of the poles or storm blows them over, your replacements, are they going to be similar?
Oh.
I mean, if you put up a galvanized or steel or silver looking pole and you replace it with one, it's still going to be galvanized or silver looking. Whereas if you've got bronze or black or whatever, just a thought. Plus $50,000
Is a lot.
out of poking that at our state.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Maybe black would be more.
Never saw the bronze up front when that one first came into the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
How
That was-
appealing that was. But to me, I don't notice color, and when we redo Main Street, to me, I think where we gain more is more, kind of your style of light on like a Main Street versus a highway corridor.
It was weird, there was
I don't
one,
think they're necessarily gonna have to match, we could get some neat looking Main Street type, small town.
Like Bassett, you drive down Highway 20 through Bassett, I couldn't tell you what type of light poles are along the highway. But then you turn and you go down Main Street and you're actually in Main Street, they're short, green, ugly looking light poles.
Well, maybe we don't get ugly.
Well,
Same thought.
yeah, you could get short, pink light poles,
Sure.
something like
Yeah.
that.
That just is a lot for.
It is, right? That's
I remember
Big difference.
there was a weird like, we were looking at the different colors, and it just seemed like bronze looked good, and all the other ones kinda looks like weird for some reason. But I mean, maybe it'd be worth looking into the, just plain black, maybe it'd be significantly cheaper, probably not. but-
I would doubt it, because I'm guessing they'll still have to powder coat it or,
At the time, I think the whole color conversation was really only hashed out because there wasn't supposed to be a difference in cost.
You're right.
I'm not so sure, but the way I read that conversation, if there had been a price difference this substantial, that conversation initially, when bronze was selected, might not have gone near as far, but.
Yeah, everybody was behind the electricity and the flag holders and the banners, and that, you know, whether it's silver, bronze, black, if you're down the road, I'd like to see the ABC money or whatever used for nice banners that can be put up, that type of thing, and the 50 grand be put into other parts of the infrastructure in the city that direly need it.
That way, I had, where we were just having matching poles the whole way through and then unified look.
It'll look nice regardless with what color, because everything will be the same underground.
We really don't wanna wait another meeting,
I kind of took it from Mark, that the sooner the better.
so with that, I'd make a motion that we go with, what is it? Group 8E, included, standard DNOT street lights units with festoons, outlets, flagpole holders, and banner brackets, for a cost of $30,635.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Call roll.
Skylar,
No.
Vance, Brad,
Yes.
Sean.
Motion carried 3-1. Good discussion, thanks, guys.
10 years from now, Skylar, you can go back and say, damn it, I wanted these other ones. and
He's
these
ugly,
cheap
yeah.
guys."
Every time I drive down the highway, he's ugly ass.
Go back and look at the minutes, I voted again. There you go.
I like Rod's idea of getting some ugly green ones on it.
Yeah, I'm not on the highway, I'm good with the silver
I
one.
think like a nice little short black, you know, with the two little things.
I'll push twice as hard when we start going south.
I'd be willing to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at that when it comes. Next item for discussion is to consider options for city garbage service. This is something that, I don't know, we discussed it, close to a year ago was first, or maybe longer than that, that I know of, but, we
Actually, garbage was the first thing, major thing we talked about when I started working here. This is years ago.
It's still working?
That tells you everything.
It's good for
Well, we're making it work. We work really hard at making it work.
Are you still using that one truck from Minnesota that Jake found, or did you find a different one?
It's
That's the
still-
same one?
that's
It's
the
been
one.
quite a while.
We're talking about replacing, it's a 2012,
Okay.
so.
Because it was used at the time, I think, if I remember right.
I think it was
I
Was it
think
new?
it's brand new.
Okay.
The whole thing's brand new?
I think it
Yeah.
was new, at the time that they bought it. So we have a couple of different options. Because of the age of the truck, we've had some repair bills on the truck. It's just, it gets a lot of wear and tear, obviously, just because of the nature of what it does. And so, we as a city, the staff, the administration here, it's our belief that the truck needs to be replaced, one way or the other. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep sinking more and more money into repair and maintenance on it, which can be done, of course, if that's what the council decides to do, but I think you'd be money ahead, maybe go in a different direction. So we have a couple of different options. Of course, the city council discussed all of these options at the budget workshop to know kind of how we were going to work the numbers for this current fiscal year's budget. And to cover all the bases, we did go with the most expensive solution, just to make sure that we were covered when the decision was made. So we have a couple of different options here. Status quo, we can ideally, the way it works best, you have 3 part-time staff working the truck. You have a driver, which requires a CDL, and then you have 2 riders. And for a rear load truck, for safety and efficiency, you really do need 2 riders on the back. We have a lot of workers' comp claims. There's a lot of injuries coming off of the back of the truck. So that's kind of been an ongoing issue. The other issue is part-time work on the garbage truck is a tough spot to fill and keep filled. It's not the funnest of jobs, and we don't necessarily pay the best for our part-time helpers. Of course, they get no benefits, no vacation days, that sort of thing. So we usually lose them on to GJW or other places that offer a full-time position. So what that means is, because you have to have 3 people on the truck, we pull existing staff onto the truck, which, causes some other issues in and of itself, just in terms of them getting their work done in their own respective departments. So that's the main concern with that. So the numbers on the option sheet, again, keep in mind, these are based on some assumptions, and these are estimated numbers. But the cheapest bid on a rear load truck came from Mid-Iowa, and that pricing was $182,225. That did include the purchase of 996-gallon toter carts. And the reason I asked for that to be included is because if you do decide to keep status quo, our guys cannot continue to hand sling the trash. It's just a lot of workers' comp, it's wear and tear on our guys, it's just not a good solution. So the rear load does have a cart tipper option on it. The guys would have to line up the cart and hook it onto their truck, but I think if you go that route, that's a must-have, and I think it's a must-have to hire a full-time person to cover some of those staffing challenges that we have. So all of those assumptions are based into these numbers for the revenues and the expenses.
I think so the rear load truck, that's not like what we have now. That would be.
It is like what?
No, identical.
Similar
to
to
what we have now. Okay.
Different brand.
Yeah, ours has got a rear load truck, we don't use it. Our
No.
rear load, don't have an arm on it, rear load arm?
It does have a cart tipper.
Oh,
We
okay,
don't have
okay,
carts, so.
okay. It is a-
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. So that'd still be curbside pickup then for that?
If you have carts, yeah, we'd have to move to curbside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you could do it in the alleys. I mean, we'd have to talk about that. I suppose you wouldn't have to, move your pickup. That would.
A lot of wear and tear on the trucks
I
anymore.
suppose it'd be a preference of the city council with some other factors, but cost-wise, this is kind of what we've got here. The other option that we're suggesting is what's called a multi-pack truck. It's a Heil truck. Essentially what it is a rear load truck with a dumpster bar, very similar to what we have now, but it also has a sidearm that can pick up the carts. So the rear load aspect would be for the dumpsters. It would work with our current 2-yard dumpsters that we have, but the arm could pick up the toters without having to be manually aligned. It's a joystick operated.
That's one you guys.
That's what I-
And this is the truck that Minden has, that we went down and demoed and launched, yes. It is quite a bit more expensive. It's, more than twice the price. It's $478,000, but that's including 996-gallon toters also. And so there's a couple of different ways you could pay for that truck. In my assumptions that I've made here on these numbers, I've included bringing in of ARPA funds. We have almost $287,000, and that was part of the COVID relief federal money. You could bring that in to offset the debt of the truck, and then that remaining $100 and some thousand you can lease potentially, these are just assumptions, of course, lease over the 5-year period and pay that payment out of debt service. So the net cost to the garbage fund would be 0 in that scenario. And we would, in this assumption also, we would hire a full-time driver. This truck can be run with one person, a driver. According to Minden and from the demo that we saw, you would need a secondary rider to help hook up the dumpsters like we do now, just more out of safety than anything. But we could pull that from an existing staff. I think that would be maybe a couple of hours each garbage day, if that, and then they'd go back to their respective jobs in their other departments. So you'd offset a little bit of wage in that regard, improve some efficiency. Probably, according to Minden, if what they say is true and replicable, we would not have more comp claims. So we've got some savings in some different areas. I have projected a 25% increase in rates in this assumption also, mostly because, and that's up to the council's discretion, obviously, what we do, that's sort of secondary, this is just for discussion purposes, but just so you've got some net, because at the end of that 5-year period, you're going to want to put that truck back in, or we're going to be in the same spot 2 or 10 years from now, where you're going to need some capital gain to put back into a new truck. And then the third proposal that we've talked about quite a bit is to just not run garbage service through the city and contract to a third party like J&J. So under these assumptions, of course we have initial buyout option of our dumpster inventory, so there's some revenue for that. They're going to pay us a monthly rent to house their truck, which, again, to the city council's discretion, I've got it figured in that money would go to the street department. And so really the effect on the city at that point would be the cost of the interlocal agreement with KBR Transfer Station. That obligation right now is $123,157. So if you divide that out by our, in simple math, this is how the county does it. Divide it out by your total users or your total residents, what have you, would be 850 bills is roughly what we bill for utilities. You have $12.25 per month per utility bill to cover that obligation. So that would be in addition to what J&J would charge. According to the numbers J&J sent me in 2020 when we were talking about this, if we cover the tipping, which the transfer station would under that interlocal agreement, the residential quote was $11. The commercial was $27.30 and the heavy commercial was $54.60. And so those rates you would have to add in the $12.25, which is the city's interlocal cost for a total overall cost per resident or business. So you'd probably be looking at about $23 or $24 for a residential customer for garbage service, as opposed to the roughly $18 that I've figured in on the other assumptions.
Lease on that quote, is that just good for the first year?
Correct.
I mean, that's, I just, devil's advocate on, nothing against J&J, I think they're a good company, but that's gonna be your first year rate and it's just gonna climb from there.
My problem with her putting an $18 bill on this multi-pack, the cost is not $18 per household.
So I broke that out for your sake.
Yeah, because we can bill them whatever we want, but the residents of Ainsworth are paying for the whole thing, one way or another, whether it shows up on their bill or they're taxed for it in a different way. They're paying the cost.
So I did break that out, taking into consideration that we're bringing in money to the garbage fund under this assumption on this page. So if you take that out, and that debt is serviced solely through the garbage rates, if you leased out the whole cost, which has been proposed by McQueen, 5-year lease at 3%, your payment is $101,601. So if you figure that into your yearly budget, that $101,000 just through rates, and keeping the rest of the budget the same, obviously, gas increase and tires and fuel and all the other things that go into that. I figured you're gonna have to raise rates 70%. So that would put your residential rate at $23.80, which is essentially what you're gonna be paying if you contract J&J.
And that 101, 601 payment, is that on the full price of the truck, or is that ARPA funds used as down
That's
payment?
the full price of the truck, and the toters.
And I guess looking at the J&J, the way I figure it right now, or I guess the question I should ask first, when we look at running through the city, that truck is still housed in the street department. Do we pay rent to the street department?
We do.
Okay, so that's included in that figure.
Correct.
Okay. So then we are comparing.
And actually, the rent right now that the garbage fund pays the street department is the same proposed rent that J&J would give us.
4,000 per month.
Yep. Or, no, excuse me, that's an incorrect statement. $4,000 per year is currently what the garbage department pays the street department for rent. J&J has proposed a monthly rent of $4,000.
So, I mean, we could, where that is income through the garbage activities, where that is income, we're not really paying the street rent. We are, but it's one hand from the other, yeah.
It's not.
And we could take that 48,000, apply it towards the 123, 157, that's our interlocal agreement, then that brings that down to about $7.37, which then we'd be at basically $18.37 roughly on a regular bill, right? If it's 11 on the J&J. That is one way to not have such a bill shock for the resident.
They're offering you almost $50,000 to rent space in the street department? I think I might be building a unit next to my radio station on an empty lot and undercutting you.
Greg's Garbage Garage.
That's just fine with me.
Yeah, and how hard would it be for them to just build their own garage, or buy a garage?
Well, and under a contract scenario, I mean, down the road, it's not to say that wouldn't happen.
Right.
That's,
These J&J rates, are they current or are they from the 2020 rates?
2020.
Okay.
And they say also they provide all the trash cans, right?
correct.
So
They
all
buy
of
our
the match
inventory,
everywhere.
and they would provide cans,
And then-
96-gallon cans.
It was also,
It'll be
they said,
curbside pickup.
Yeah, curbside, there's no more alley, I don't think, any way we go, I don't think there's gonna be any more alley pickup.
Yeah.
well, that's a selling point for me, is that this street's got, they've got their trash pickup this day. You look down that street, everything is lined up on the curb and they're identical trash cans. I think that's very appealing to me. Also, I remember somebody saying that there was a breakdown, they'd have a truck replaced right away, so no one would be waiting.
Yeah.
Remember just some high points that sparked me with the J&J.
Another thing you gotta consider too is dumpsters. If we continue to do the trash pickup, our dumpsters are in terrible shape. And we cannot get them from Atkinson no more. So we priced them at one of the places that got the trucks for sale, and they're $800 and some a dumpster. Well, by the time they got them here, if they had to ship them, it was over like $1,200 to get one dumpster shipped here. And we was getting them for $550 down here to Atkinson, but supposedly they don't make them anymore. So that's something to think about. We've got 120-some dumpsters out there, and there's probably 3/4 of them that's been rebuilt, and they're about to the point where they're not gonna be rebuilt no more. So you better add that into the process too, because that's gonna be kind of spendy time to buy all them dumpsters. And there's a lot of them that needs replaced right now.
And there is a new equipment line built into the budgets.
That's just something to
It's
think
not
about.
enough to cover 100 dumpsters.
No,
It's
but
really-
there's,
You'd have to buy them in chunks over
Yeah, a few each year.
One thing that I've thought about that, I mean, just to consider, I guess, if we did our own, truck instead of contract with J&J, we could potentially, I mean, of course, we'll have to speak to them and see if there's any surrounding communities that might want to contract with us as well. I mean, I know, you know, potentially all the way to Stewart, or I know Springview, I think ended up going with J&J once, but I mean, something to think about, if we want to try and recoup some costs on that too.
I mean, then my problem with that is then we as the city of Ainsworth are trying to get into the regional garbage game, rather than letting the regional garbage people cover regional garbage and we cover the city of Ainsworth, as far as city activities. I guess I'm in favor of going with J&J. I think, you know, say they end up jerking us around, well, we're at basically ground zero now, where we pretty much either need to buy a new truck or go outsource it. Say we get down the road with J&J, I don't think we're that much different in the spot of either continuing or starting ground zero new truck. It's a staffing nightmare right now, from what I can tell. People operating it don't particularly care to operate it. I mean, Kevin is.
It's just hard to find people to ride the back.
Yeah.
It's getting harder and harder. Just nobody around.
Which wouldn't be a concern if we had to
It's
decide.
about the multi-pack.
Yeah, we
You
had to
run
decide.
with the same railroad that.
I don't know. My concern, I guess, is if, I feel like if we go with J&J, there's not any going back. I mean, that's a big, I think it's a big bill now, but I mean, if we had to start, you know, fresh, I don't think that'd be, I think we'd get in trouble. I think if we go J&J, I don't think there's any backing out of that, but that's just a concern, I guess.
Kind of like the countywide law enforcement. You're at their mercy, whichever way they want to stick you with the bill.
With the multi-pack truck, you've got 5 years worth of payments to pay the truck off. On a new truck, if you go curbside as opposed to alley, you're more than likely gonna get 10 on a conservative side out of that truck. So your costs, years 6 through 10 are gonna be lower because you won't have the service debt on the vehicle. So I mean, as Skylar said, if you're looking at that longer term, yeah, your costs are gonna be probably comparable while you're paying off a truck, but you're not gonna pay off a truck every year that you're operating, you know.
Hopefully.
Right, I mean,
It's a risk we take. I mean, it could break down.
yeah, you might
terribly
start
in
having
year three.
repair, you might have to start having repair bills, absolutely, so.
Yeah, either, I guess the concern is J&J raises rates, the concern of keeping it is this thing just eats you to death on costs. And then you never get ahead of it.
And then the next council's having this conversation 6 years from now, or, well, we got another truck, but we
You
got,
can say, have fun with that, guys. You know?
I don't know the answer, I don't envy the decision for you guys on it.
I mean, if we go with J&J, I feel like the council basically decided we don't want to close the transfer station. I mean, that's.
We can't close the transfer station, we gotta keep that, whatever it takes to keep that thing operational. That's my opinion, that we have to try to keep that operational.
I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
I just-
But the J&J guy explained at that meeting that we had 2 years ago or whatever, a year ago, that they did not want our landfill. They don't want it. Unless we want to get rid of it, then they buy it, but he said they do not want it.
Well, the cost also, he mentioned to just have to haul it here as opposed to where they have to haul it to what O'Neill, otherwise if we don't have this facility available, that was.
Well,
So I know they were much in favor of just hauling it here when they needed to dump their truck.
They own the landfill in David City, so if they were gonna haul them, they were gonna haul it David City.
I think they said they had 4 or 5 of their own landfills scattered out, and I don't know where they're all at. They've got a few of them.
You know, my impression for having this on the agenda tonight wasn't necessarily that you guys would have to make a decision, although you're welcome to. I think our hope was that we would get some more public input on what folks thought.
Feedback on what the residents, the businesses might like to see.
Well, with the rates we're going off of on J&J, I guess I was kinda hoping or thinking that they were gonna be current. You know, with everything else going up in price, if we went to J&J, I'd like to see, their updated price schedule. And if they would go into at least a 3-year contract to lock me in for 3 years. Then after that, we know where we're at for 3 years. They can't say, well, we're locked in here, next year we're gonna raise your rates, do a 3-year contract. But our advance though, we're at ground zero right now. And if we don't like it with J&J, we're back at ground zero, and yes, it's gonna cost us a little bit more because of inflation and trucks are gonna go higher. We can decide, okay, we're going to multi-pack or rear load then. But I'd like to see what the current rates are on J&J before we make a decision.
When you were at Minden, you said the dumpsters are still loaded into the back of the truck? Just the driver could do that? I mean, I think about my dumpster in the back.
They grabbed us, 2 of them went out early in the morning and did dumpsters for like an hour and a half. And then he'd go dump the other guy off back at his other job, and one guy would go and do that.
You know, I've tried pushing my dumpster around by myself, you know, to get it back up when the wind blows it out and that. I don't think I'd like to try to get it lined up on the back of the truck to dump it by myself.
These assumptions that are in here would include pulling a second guy.
Right,
to
yeah.
line up.
And I realize you don't have that many dumpsters, and if you broke it up over 2 days or whatever, but I'm not so sure one person behind the truck can handle the dumpsters.
Well, the driver would get out.
Oh, okay.
Driver and-
All right.
That's what they did, they grabbed one extra guy. did
Oh, and then the
dumpsters for an
driver,
hour or
okay, because
so.
right now you always have 2 people on the back of the truck, and the driver stays in the truck.
And
Got
the cab on this multi-pack is a different kind of cab, like than what we've got right now. It's more of a, I don't know what you would call that, kind of a bus.
Step in, I mean, yeah.
So you don't quite have the 3 or 4 steps down.
Right.
It's a lot easier, you just kind of hop off and hop back in and.
I just know my dumpster in Valentine, they have a front load. And, you know, so they just pull up to it, and it, kind of like they would
It's
do
like a
with
forks.
the carts, yeah.
Forks kind of hook onto it and then move over.
So are those type of trucks a lot more than
Yes.
this multi-pack one?
No, well, of course, it's been a year, so I'm sure it's gone up like everything else, but they were about $400,000 when I had talked to McQueen about that. The trouble with those too is, you know, you gotta watch for overhead power lines, cause you're way up there by the time the fork dumps it, and I guess we just didn't really consider that at the time, because you'd still have to sling the regular truck.
Yeah, you'd have the front load, but you'd be back, it wouldn't be a multi-pack, you'd do the rear load with forks in the front, so you still have to have 3 guys on the truck, right? Except when you're doing dumpsters and one person can do the dumpsters, you're just kind of flipping that.
Okay.
And, I mean, I think on the loads, well, the side loads too, they don't have the dumpster bar in the back, it's just arms. But you have to switch out the arms, depending on the size of the container. So that wouldn't work with our current dumpsters, we'd have to buy all new dumpsters to get a 2-yard container that would fit that arm. So this multi-pack truck was really kind of the only truck that I could find that met all of the needs without having to buy all new dumpsters.
On your projected revenue for the rear load and the multi-pack, projected revenue residential 1788, commercial 3413. Those are with the 25% increase, or those are the current rates right now?
That would be with the 25% increase. They're right now it's $14 for residential, $27.30 for commercial, and $54.60 for heavy commercial. And the dumpster rental is $13 a month.
So the multi-pack would be $17.88 a month, and then the contract would be,
And that's
say, like
assuming-
11 something for their service, but then also the 12.25 for the ticket. So essentially 17 versus 23, give or take.
And, you know, keep in mind how you decide to pay for that truck really skews all of those numbers. So if you decide not to use ARPA funds, or you decide not to use debt service funds, those assumptions change, and therefore all of the numbers change. Which is why, you know, without ARPA, without debt service, and if you covered that lease payment wholly on rates, you'd be looking at probably $23.80 for a residence.
Plus 50.
No, that
Yeah.
covers the under.
I'll use a Vance term, but if you look at your cost-benefit analysis,
to me, long-term, you're probably less money with having your own truck. Having it as a public service as opposed to a private service, because there's a profit margin in a private service that you don't have in the public service. You're somewhat operating at a cost or a break even, and that's a service to your public to offer that, as opposed to contracting it out where there's gonna be a profit margin that's taken from the community for that same service. So that, you know, just
Yeah,
looking at,
I mean, you get something that companies get efficiencies elsewhere.
maybe, potentially, I don't know.
And some businesses lose money.
Well, not for very long, unless they've got a good banker.
I'm just saying that, that's one thing, people always assume businesses make money, which isn't necessarily the truth, hopefully for their sake.
That's like I said, I don't think you save anything year 1 through 5, but if you get more than 5 years, which I'd like to think we would, off of your own truck, that's where you're gonna see your,
Our truck was 9
Your
years
savings to the
old,
city.
but we've,
Maybe, yeah, 10, almost.
it's almost 10, but we've had, almost need to replace it 3 years ago.
We rebuilt the hydraulics in that thing, what, twice now or 3 times?
The brakes are a big thing.
I think we've redone about everything.
Yeah,
But that's
right.
also,
That's on the chassis,
but that's also been doing all the alleys, so either way we go, we're pretty much gonna be stuck going to
alleys are hard on the
our
truck.
truck, but now I'm concerned also going, which I think we have to go to the street, no matter which way we go. But then like during the winter, when, say, the snowplow comes by and there's vehicles stuck out there, and how does that truck get up to the curb where that dumpster? I mean, that's gonna be, on all 3 of these figures, that's gonna be a concern, on every one of them.
Well, we make that work now. I mean, it would
Yeah.
work the same for the dumpsters.
But if you can't get that arm over there to
We
pick
don't-
up that,
We don't use the arms.
no, but on the multi-pack, you pull up there and, yeah,
For the toters, not the
Yeah.
dumpsters, the trash cans.
yeah, you gotta pick up that arm and dump it, right?
And
You
has
can't
a-
get close enough to the curb where that dumpster is.
Yeah, how
Has
far
a
kind of reach is that?
We've got a bit of a reach.
It has a 9-foot reach.
oh, wow.
I could almost reach over.
It moves, yeah, it moves
That's,
in now.
that's pretty.
And
Oh, it does.
It's all
Oh,
plastic, and it'll
okay.
actually tilt down or tilt up.
Then it would just be up to the city to make sure the streets are clean. In
Oh,
a timely fashion.
They do a decent job or a good job at times, but if there's cars, you know, like sometimes in front of my place or with the neighbors and stuff, you might have 5, 6 cars there, and that windrow is
Yeah.
10 foot away from the curb,
Yeah.
and they can't help that.
John, did you have a?
Yeah, I was curious, maybe you went over this before I came, but I understand you went to Minden and looked at them, and I was curious what their rate structure was, you know, comparison to these figures.
They did tell us,
Yeah,
it
nice.
was higher than what we charge now, but I feel like it was within the $14 to $18 range, maybe 16 or 17.
Yeah, we asked him, I can't remember the number, but it was higher than what we're at. But we're
not by a
gonna have to
lot.
go up, to
Yeah.
make things balanced, we're gonna have to go up no matter what choice we take here. That's-
Are there certain things that COVID money can be used for? I assume garbage would, you know, sanitation would fit into that. Did you have any other, were there any other main projects you would otherwise use that
Sure, yeah.
COVID money for?
It has some restrictions, it needs to be tied back somehow to COVID prevention, at the end of the day, but they've also, interestingly enough, green lighted basically any SRF project. So anything that would be eligible for funding under the SRF for water and sewer infrastructure projects are kind of like an automatic guarantee, to use ARPA funds.
So we got highway or Main Street, and we redo that water, that sewer work down there, we could definitely,
Well, you have to use it a certain number,
Funds.
you have to use it a certain amount of time.
you got a
Some of the
26, I think it is.
Some of the
2026.
problem is that you have to have the funds committed to a project by 2024. And then they have to be fully spent down by 2026.
I just worry if that Main Street project gets pushed back 2, 3
I'm
more
sure,
times. all of a sudden-
I'm sure there's plenty of projects
Yeah.
that they could be used for.
Like what else? Well,
And that was kind of one of the reasons why, under these assumptions, when we budgeted, I put it in for garbage, because that's an inherent need, that,
Well, it would
You know,
save,
and when
it
you're
would save your
talking-
property owner,
when
or
you're
your
talking
residents.
proprietary funds, whether you use the ARP, in my opinion, when you use it for, any kind of proprietary, whether it's garbage, water, sewer. It's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, you're either paying for it through rates or you're paying for these things through debt service, which is essentially ARPA, I mean, in a little bit different way. You're just shoveling the funds is all you're doing. So whether you use it on garbage service or whether you use it on water or sewer, either way to the resident or the community member, it's a wash.
Unless we weren't able to get all the funds used for a different project.
If you don't get it used, it has to be returned.
Right. So I mean, we need to ensure that they're used.
Yeah.
Do you have another comment, John?
Yeah, I did. I remember when the J&J guy was here that and there was a question that came up about recycling, and he wasn't interested in that at all. And I mean, I can understand why. So I guess what I'm leading up to is the recycling part of it would stay the same as it is now with the unit parked out back and the people taking their recyclables to that. And it wouldn't change under any of these scenarios. And otherwise, you can haul it out to the transfer station. So.
Yep, those are all functions of the transfer station at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's no desire on the city's part to increase the recycling effort, I guess is what I'm saying.
I did have a conversation with some of the KBR solid waste board members, just trying to creatively think of different scenarios and ways to fund these, without massive rate increases. And there are grants available for different things through the Nebraska recycling.
Incentives,
It always has to be tied back to recycling, so basically the question that I posed to them was, if we used the truck, if we bought this multi-pack truck, and we added a day for like cardboard, pick up cardboard, in addition to the trailers that they have, it'd be like a curbside pickup. Maybe we could propose that, give some funds to help offset the cost of the truck, and then maybe at the end of the day, it would help out the transfer station because they sell that, and then that revenue benefits them, which lowers the local payment. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody if we could make something like that work.
You'd either have to do an additional tote, or you'd have to go back to labor on that one day.
Yeah, we'd have to
Cardboard, you'd have
work out some details on that.
There's a lot of larger communities,
Not
they've
even
got
possible.
3 or 4 different receptacles. They got a
Right,
plastic,
right.
they got an aluminum and metal,
It's
they've got a
different.
cardboard, they got a paper. I mean, they've got basically everything but compostables are in separate containers when you go to some of those
So
places.
there's some possibilities of ways that we can get creative, and do some other things. It's just a matter of time and funds.
There would be grant funding probably for something like that, don't you think?
Well, potentially, I didn't, I guess, take the time to research a bunch of that.
Right. No, that's all right.
Had a feeling about.
How
what we were-
long have the tipping fees been the same that we paid, or the city, per?
They go up about every year, don't they, Brad? Lexington Solid Waste.
Yeah.
They go up pretty consistently.
So that's gonna be the same no matter what option we go anyway, because we're paying that.
It's been 123, 157 since 2020. Before that, it was 117, 284, 107, 442 for a couple of years. And back in 16, we paid 95, 449.
So it's about 33%.
It's
since
in
whatever
16,
year
and
that
that's
was.
what, quite a bit.
As a business owner, and I realize you're looking for input down the road, not so much tonight, but as a business owner, I would hate to see the city get away from the garbage business because it would be detrimental to my business. In that, when the city made it mandatory, you were gonna get charged for garbage, it worked real well. Because I was down on Main Street and my dumpster in back had, that, along with other people, other businesses, everybody, residents would take their garbage and find a dumpster and dump it in. If you go to J&J, you can't force the people to do business with J&J, so you're gonna see them say, oh, I'll just take it down, find a dumpster in town and fill it up.
Well, I was thinking that with J&J with mine, I mean, living outside the city, I already have to make trips to the
Yeah.
solid waste of mine. I would probably, just as, from KDRB's perspective, I would probably refuse J&J service. And when I mean, I obviously pay the part for the
Yeah,
tipping
pay the
fees,
12
but,
deal.
yeah, but when it came time for KDRB's trash needs to go out, well, you know, haul mine too, so I'll just throw it in, I mean.
So we want, if we want J&J, would we be paying J&J the city and then we could still bill the resident?
I would argue against that. That's
Okay.
the city's obligation under the interlocal agreement, and I don't think it would be a good idea to put that responsibility in the hands of a third party that we can't control.
Right, and along Rod's point, if you have 15% of your residents opt out of that J&J service, well, obviously they're saying, hey, we've still got to pay the driver and have the truck.
You're right.
We were basing our contract price off of this many customers. If we're down 15%, our cost to you are the same, it's just gonna be more per customer. I mean, I don't know how large a percentage, but where I live outside of town, it's just as easy for me to throw, instead of dragging mine out to a curb, I can just throw them in the back of the pickup and pick up my own and take it out there.
I believe a lot of people.
I live in the city and I do that half the time because I forget to put it out. Why we're going so hard on rate increases, we just heard our own interlocal agreement's gone up 33% in the last however many years. Do we get to see those numbers at all? Do we have any control over that? We're arguing over whether we get control. We don't even have control over a situation now. I don't think maybe I'm wrong, but J&J seemed to have success in every community east of here. I don't know if we're going to be, I don't know why we're special that somehow we're gonna operate it more efficiently. We're having problems staffing it as it is. The guy running the truck now, Boona, how much longer does he have before he retires? And we're looking for somebody to run the truck. I think this is a lot less in our control already than we're operating under this.
It's in our control. I mean, it's in the control of people that voted for us. I mean, if, you know, J&J's the only garbage place in town, what control do you have there, except to just not work with them and just go out take your stuff out to the dump station, and then, you know, like you were saying, rates increase and things like that, so.
I think that
As opposed to now where we just increased 33% over.
Well, yeah,
40
now there's
years.
something we
Without,
yell at.
yeah. You know,
But in the past, you look at it, the tipping fee versus what you guys charge for the pickup. So the tipping fee portion, which I pay as a county resident, it's like $12 a month. You guys are charging 14 and picking it up, that's a no-brainer, but if you guys are charging 15 extra to pick it up on top of the tipping fee, then yeah, you see what I'm
We're
saying?
paying for it elsewhere.
Yes.
In the budget.
Yeah.
It's not that there's not the cost, it's not getting billed. To me, that's a question,
That's
so.
not entirely true. I mean, we own the truck that we have now, so there is no transfer of funds coming in,
Yeah, we own it, so there's a cost to operate. There's
which is
maintenance
paid for
costs.
by the rates currently.
$2 per person in addition to because we're doing the 12 that goes to the interlocal. So
There's
we're
no-
running everything, salaries. And my question on this 585,087. So we've got 850 monthly bills, roughly. Let's just, if that's the number we're using. 585,077. We've got 12, that's 48,756 a month. Divided by 850. That's coming out to $57 a month if we're using 850 monthly bills on this multi-pack. What am I missing?
Not all of those monthly bills are the same rate. They're
Sure,
not all
but our cost per
$14.30
850.
per month.
But
Then you get into the commercial, that those businesses are picked up 3 days a week.
and
They're
then
paying those rates times 3.
some of them, yeah. How many commercials do we have? I guess I would.
I
To me, the
would have
difference in
no
dollars
idea.
is enough that I'm thinking that the 2380 or whatever we're talking isn't gonna cover that middle option.
Well, at the current rates, the revenue for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, we estimated at $219,044. So that's your total at the current rates,
Revenue.
850 bills, that's your revenue coming strictly off of garbage.
I'm not worried about revenue, I'm worried about expenses.
So our
Because expenses have to be paid for.
Our expenses for the 2020-2021 year were $202,229.
That's without a garbage truck payment.
There is
Then-
no transfer
Okay.
in and there are no transfers out. That's just strictly rate service, revenues, paying for expenses.
But looking at our three new options, so that's what we've been paying, the 202 roughly, in expenses, is what the cost of the services. And that includes the 124-ish that goes to the local. So in our new deals, if I'm reading this tribe sheet here, a rear load truck, doesn't seem anyone's too interested in that. So we're looking at multi-pack or a new contract. We've got projected expenses approximately $585,077 for a multi-pack truck.
That's the entire budget. That's not the truck. That's
But the option for the multi-pack truck in a year, projected expenses $585,077
Right.
for year one.
And that's with the assumption that ARPA and debt service pays for the cost of that truck.
Yeah, but that's included in the 585 we're pulling from ARPA or debt service. The cost per year is $585,077.
Just to run the service.
Just to run the service. So if we divide that, and I know you're gonna have differences in billing, but divide that by our 850 monthly users, we get that 57.
Well, but keep in mind, with that assumption, the expense of the truck is built in, but you've got transfers in, so that's why your revenue's higher. So you're bringing in $287,000 plus $42,000 under debt service.
Shrink.
To
Debt service is
offset.
just money from a different, the cost
But
per,
if you're gonna take revenue versus expenses, you gotta subtract that out to get a total,
who's paying for the debt service?
the resident through local option sales tax,
So it's still getting,
which
the
is for
cost
long-term
is
debt.
quite a bit higher. The same people are paying it one way or the other.
Regardless whether you use debt, whether you use rates, whether you use ARPA, yeah, I mean, it's all, the resident's paying
It's,
no matter what.
I'm just saying, the way I'm looking at it is it's significantly more expensive to run our own truck than it'll be, if, let's say the 172 is 657, divided by that, same 850, well, you're looking at, it's gonna be about 17 total.
So,
That's transferring the 48 still out to the street,
so if you look at the current budget under the multi-pack option, and you do no transfers in, right, and you're paying that lease payment, like I had said, you're gonna have to raise rates about 70% to cover that, so your total revenue under that scenario will be $372,374. Factoring in the lease payment, your total expenditures would be $357,958. So you net about $14,000
For your first 5 years.
for the first 5 years.
That'd be basically the same rates as J&J. That would basically be the same rate as J&J too.
Well,
I mean-
that's that, what, $23.80 per resident, and that'd be about $46.41 for a commercial customer, and $95.88 for a heavy commercial, and $22.10 for a dumpster rental. That's what that would put that at.
I'd like to make a suggestion, if I might.
You're the mayor.
Before we get too frustrated trying to figure out these numbers, and we're not gonna be able to because we don't have current numbers from J&J. I think we've had a real good discussion here so far tonight. I think it's time to move on unless you guys want to take action, which I would recommend against, because I don't think we have the information in front of us to make the action.
I make a
So-
motion that we table this until we get current numbers from J&J.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Vance.
All right.
Brad.
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Skylar?
Aye.
Can I ask one question? Lisa, in your figures there from the transfer station, you know, you gave us the figure of how much the city has share of the what's the county share?
Lindy might know, it's based off of population. Of course, the cities, our population is the greatest out of the local contributors, so I think we cover 56% of their total operating budget.
Long time is,
So we're about 10,000, 10 to 11,000 per month. County is 5.
6,300?
Okay,
And then
but that's
one-
per month.
Yep, and
All
then
right.
Long Pine and Johnstown are the other.
Make up the difference.
Yep.
See, this has always been my contention, I realize you tabled that. We're county citizens, we're county residents, so why are we getting double dipped?
you're not.
They're not.
You're not.
Where does the county come up with their $6,300?
By billing me that because I live outside
The
in
treasurer-
So you get all,
Yeah,
I
the
get a
county bills the
bill.
county residents.
see, they used to not do that because the county.
They used to do it on property tax. They used to be on
Yeah,
a property tax
property
bill. No,
tax.
they do not.
They-
That's an
you do get a
assessment.
bill now.
Yes.
Okay.
$13, Greg?
I believe it's something around there, went up $1 or
Yeah,
two.
because you can pay it annually.
Yep, and I just pay it once, yeah, I
Yeah.
pay it, write one check to the treasurer for that full year's worth
Technically,
of,
I'm in the county also.
but I also have to haul my own then. I don't
Right.
have the pickup service, but like I
Right.
said, the difference between what the city was paying on tipping fees, which is apples to apples to the county, the city was paying $12 per month, basically, on a bill on
Yeah.
tipping fees. The county is at 30, basically, the city's picking up your trash for $1.
Right.
You know what I mean, compared to what the
Yeah.
county's charging.
Okay, we're gonna move
Yeah,
on.
sorry, go ahead.
The next item,
Showed up just in time.
we're gonna discuss and consider an administrative subdivision regarding lot 12, lot 26, Osborne.
I got
All right,
another meeting to go
so
to.
this is,
I thought you were retired.
kind of an interesting situation where we have a residential property that, the attached garage to the house is actually sitting in between two lots. So the garage is about 10 feet onto the adjoining property. So the request here is to kind of clean that up. The adjoining property owner has agreed to sell that 10 feet of their lot to make that garage wholly on one parcel. So that's what this is. I think the aerial, I think this is in the packet. This is like the easiest way to look at it.
Pass this way.
Yeah. So really this is just to clean that lot line up, and
So we're taking the red line and moving it down?
moving it to the left.
This is the garage in question, right? That right there? Or is this one?
The house across the lot.
Because there's two properties on the lot line, there's two buildings on the lot line. That's why I didn't know that, or. This one on the lot line, you got that one. So there's, you're red line's going through two of them, I wasn't sure which one we're
Probably
talking
the lane
about.
to the west or
I assumed by this that it was the one, maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
There may be one other lot.
That it was the one in the west, does Dwayne own that one?
Yeah, I know.
I guess I should have looked that up. I'm not sure. I just assumed it was on the new plot.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, and I just said, well, you have two buildings in the, going right, the red line going right through two buildings.
I think it's the lot line that runs north and south.
Okay.
They would be moving to the west, if
Moving
I
to the
remember
west.
right.
Okay.
So we had a similar issue to this not that long ago, where I think council voted against moving the lot line, or dividing the lot,
That
because
was,
we wanted to stay a certain size.
that was subdividing of basically a backyard off of a residential lot is what that was. This is not dividing this is really just adding the 10 feet to cover the building, and you're still within your, I don't remember what the required square footage was, off the top of my head.
But that lot that's getting smaller would still be within the,
Yes.
Well, we're making a smaller lot bigger. If we okay this, we're making a smaller lot and bigger.
And these are already two separate lots, two different properties, two different property owners. It's, the line on the property runs through one property owner's garage currently.
Right.
And if I understand correctly, this is a pending sale, so this is kind of like
We
a
talked about
clean out the
about this
title.
one, I was talking about the house, that building there.
Yeah,
Because we, a lot line going through another building, if this is, these lots.
So
The
Dwayne-
issue before was, I remember we discussed that it wouldn't meet the minimum requirement for
Yeah,
lot size,
that's
but
not,
that is not a
that's
concern.
not an
Okay.
issue here. Yeah, because it's actually taking what was otherwise a tiny lot that probably shouldn't have been divided the way it was years ago and making it a bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a
Lindsay said there was that one there, so that, moving it west, moving the lot line.
So from a
You're right.
zoning perspective, I guess I don't see an issue with this. It's not putting anything out of compliance, it's just cleaning it up for the property owners that are involved.
So do you need just an approval of,
I would need a motion to approve it or deny it, I suppose.
I move to approve, administrative subdivision regarding lot 12, block 26, Osborne's addition.
Second.
motion and second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Brett,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Next item is to discuss and consider the Ainsworth Betterment Committee recommendation to fund the Ainsworth Community Fishing Pond Project, sponsored by the Ainsworth Lions Club, in the amount up to $40,000 for construction.
So Greg's here, obviously. He's kind of the contact point person on the project, but the committee met and Greg was there to present his plans. And then after the committee discussed it, I believe it was a unanimous vote to fund construction of the project.
Yeah, I kind of spoken with you guys about it when we talked about the well site, so I think all of you are familiar with what we're looking at doing, so. The county's gonna start moving some dirt as they need it on other projects. They want some of that, current topsoil and things that's out there, so I think they'll start this fall. We don't anticipate probably going full bore on, because we'll have to bring in a contractor, do some of the final shaping and sloping and some of the more intricate work on the, but the county is gonna help with a lot of the excavation work, which is gonna help our bottom line. They'll do that as an in-kind contribution. It's their property, but, that way they can use that soil for projects as they need it. So I think from talking to Kenny, it's just basically, hey, when we need a bunch of dirt, instead of us having to haul dirt, dump it somewhere, then load it up, haul it again, we'll just come in and haul out of there to start working on it. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit of a project before some of that, it's a lot of dirt to move, so they'll do that kind of as they need it initially, and then it'll probably be spring, we'll be looking at putting in some effort to actually get the rest of it done, but they're gonna start, I think, this fall. So I've got an application pending with the Visitors Committee for they've got two separate pools of money in the lodging tax. One is for promotion, they've got another one for tourism enhancement, so it would be that fund, which has kind of a limited purpose on what they can really find projects to use that on. So I've got an application pending with them. I've also got an application in with the foundation. We'll meet with them whenever they get together to discuss it. And with those three funding sources, potentially in equal amounts, if they're all awarded, that should be enough to cover our costs for the most part. We've got some smaller stuff out there with, the family, our memorial donation that we've made, and then a smaller grant application that KBR, Rural Public Power, asked us to fill out that they've got some funds for. But, those are smaller. The three main ones would be from ABC, the lodging tax, and from the foundation with then some in-kind donations from the county for the material excavation. From Beck's Well has donated a little bit on the donated some on labor on installing the well, some of those types of things, so. I'm happy to answer any questions, just in sake of, if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer. I think you guys know for the most part what we're looking at, so.
There was an issue with not being able to use the closest well because the owner denied it.
Correct.
I did hear that that's being sold.
Oh, I heard
So
it's
that
for
might-
sale, I don't know if it's being sold, and that's certainly something that can change if there is new
I
ownership,
believe it
Sean.
was a foreclosure sale, so I believe that it's going by
Yeah,
regardless.
yes.
Matter of fact,
And
know
I,
really well.
and I, as soon as, and I'll have the assessor let me know when that is officially sold, and I will certainly make contact with, the new owner to see if
That
that's.
would save you.
It would save us some piping costs, basically, yeah. And, with piping, there's always the chance that, yeah, it would be a much easier.
Well, it'd be
Way
nice
to
for us
fill it.
too, because then if we ever did do something further to the west or something like that, I mean, it kind of clear some more space for potential park expansion and stuff like that. I mean, it wouldn't be in the way of anything like that.
Yeah, the one we've proposed kind of, that you guys agreed to is in that far southeast corner, and the piping would go along the far south fence line.
And then come
Yeah.
back to the north.
It would, yeah, come back to the west and would then come into the pond from the south there is how we, but yeah, it would certainly save us some piping. Yeah, I had heard that the person who denied the waiver on the irrigation well was potentially selling that location. So yes, I will certainly be interested if that does sell the
Or
contact.
you could get all that.
Yeah, you could, yeah, okay, so I need to change my ABC applications.
Make it a lake.
So, but anyway, yeah, if you guys have any questions, happy to answer them, but appreciate your consideration on it. And I think with the support we've seen from the community and other organizations, we can get to work on it. My hope is to begin filling it potentially next fall, probably would be a realistic time frame as far as actually having the dirt work completed, getting things to the point where we're ready to fill it up.
And with the ABC's recommendation of 4-0, I make a motion to approve the $40,000 to the Lions Club for the fishing pond.
Second.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Call roll.
Sean?
Aye.
Skylar?
Aye.
Vance? Brad?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, folks, much appreciated.
Good project. Next on the agenda is to discuss and consider the agreement for economic development services with the North Central Development Center. We got several representatives, do you have something to start with, or?
Not particularly, I mean, what's in the packet is essentially the same as what we had last year, just an update on the dates, a change in the mayor's name. And just-
Changes every year.
That's great. It didn't seem like we had any issues, I guess we said decided on the agreement, so.
This is just the LB 40 agreement, correct?
Correct, this is
Which is, there's still
50,000.
the 12,000 out of the general funds.
That's correct, yeah.
Lisa, I have just like a really minor thing. We need to update our address in there.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just transposed. 356, okay.
Oh, I put 365.
Just so that-
Sorry about that.
And when is the stop on when we,
Right, so I think the current agreement was dated September 1.
We were, yeah.
I would recommend that we date it October 1, just so it runs with the fiscal year and the fiscal quarters, so I don't think that's a big deal. It's not like you're losing funding for a month or anything by doing it that way. It just kind of cleans it up, makes it a little easier to keep track of on our part.
So the one thing as a board we discussed with this year's contract is obviously you guys have seen through council meetings, there's been a lot of additional activity through LBA 40. So initially when we redid this, prior we were in that $65,000 to $75,000 range is what the previous grants had been to the NCDC from the LBA 40 fund. When we had the restructure and we called it a contract, we settled on $50,000, and initially there was going to be a 1%
awarding of any applications that were approved by the council from LB 840 that the NCDC had handled, then up to an additional 10,000. We kind of, as we initially went, we were down a staff member, so we were down to one person, and we just basically said we'll just do the 50,000 and not try to mess with any percentages off each application. So from the board standpoint, that office is extremely busy, and to be as effective as it needs to be, we're trying to get back to at least a part-time person to assist in the office, mainly with some of the more routine types of responsibilities to allow our director to be more effective on actual projects. And we've gotten an additional commitment from Brown County. They've kicked in additional funding for the express purpose of trying to go to a part-time second employee. The board has voted to increase our minimum contribution to become a contributing partner. We had a couple counties, Kippahan and Rock, that were paying $2,500 a year. We've increased that minimum to $5,000. So there's a little more skin in the game from those two counties. And then our request from the ABC for this contract would be from 50 to 60. And that would get us to the point where we can bring on a part-time person to assist in the office, and I think make things more efficient and provide better service to our partners to just have some of that routine work handled by somebody on a part-time basis to assist our director. So we aren't looking for bringing back a full-time, which was what we had before. It would be just a part-time, and we would be flexible schedule for that person. But our board voted today that if we have an agreement that we can get that from 50 to 60 for the next contract, that we would move forward then with advertising for a part-time position and get that in place, utilizing the extra dollars from the county and our other contributing partners. So that's our request tonight. I think, Kristen's here, Kim, our chairman's here, if you have questions or discussions. But, when we redid this and started that contract, the goal was we need to get those LB 840 dollars out and working in the community. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Some of them probably have more impact than others when you see business loans versus, facade grants or, things like that. They're all community betterment. They're increasing property values. They're making things look nicer. But I think the goal of utilizing funding and not just having a bundle of money just built up when you're going to try to request a renewal, I think putting that back to work, we've been able to accomplish that over the last year plus. So that's our request. Any of us are happy to answer questions or have a conversation about it.
I've always presented this as being kind of an investment in your community, and I think what's happened at that office through the years and even in the present time during the COVID thing and everything else has brought a lot more money than that in the community. I would say that the more we invest in that, maybe the better our chances are of even getting a little bit more done. So.
We did have discussion as a board today to start moving forward with a development corporation. The town hall, I don't know if any of the council, any of the council members that might have been at least was at the town hall. One of the main themes that came out was housing. And instead of continuing to try to figure out ways that the NCDC could potentially be eligible again for LB 840 as an applicant for housing, I think the board is at the point where we're going to look at some form of establishing a development corporation. Now, we don't have the final, what that's going to look like, if it's going to be nonprofit, for-profit, who's going to be on that corporation. We are now looking at just simply moving forward with an actual development corporation to try to get back into the housing portion of things to get that restarted, since that's identified as a major community need again. So instead of trying to figure out how the NCDC could potentially qualify, I think we're going to just move forward with a development corporation, and obviously would then be the applicant on any, because there's some state funds out there that we really need to start trying to utilize, and so I think we can start getting some things done again, but we're just going to
move forward in whatever form it takes with a separate corporation on the housing side.
This isn't totally LBA party related, and I'll touch on it a little bit later in my report. But also just remember too that we do provide other services. I know you're providing some funds out of your general fund as well. But just like tonight's discussion on the garbage trucks, there are some grant funds out there. You know, we are here, you just have to let us know, get me some estimates, we can help you write those grants. So, I guess outside of that LBA 40 contract, there are other things that NCDC does for our community as well. I know, Greg, we've worked with you on your project. If anyone was at the town hall meeting, almost every project that stood up to give a presentation on things they had done had referenced working with the NCDC in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's important to remember too.
And on an update, the ABC funding for demo, I think there have been now 5 applications that have been approved for demo projects through that, I believe, was it 60,000 in ABC funding? So 5 projects have been approved up to $10,000 each, which is a 50-50 cost share with the property owner. So I think you'll start seeing some things move forward on some of the demo, getting rid of a few of those, you know, nuisance properties that always continue to get flagged. So I think we've approved 5, or 4 of the 5, Kristen, is my understanding, 4 of the 5 applications approved were on the nuisance list?
That is correct. There's only one that wasn't on the nuisance list. At some point, maybe it would have been, I don't know, but.
But a vacant building, yeah, a vacant property.
And it's something that they plan to, I think, eventually construct something else in its place, so.
That just gives you kind of an update of what we're doing. That's a little aside from the LD 840 contract conversation, but.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we budgeted 50,000 for that. What sort of flexibility do we have there?
Well, you budget to spend all your LD 840 money, so it would fall within that framework. I don't, you know.
I think we can change, I feel we can change that part of it. What we budget for was a 12.5, and I don't think that's already been set. We could change to 12.5.
Right.
1,200 in general.
Oh, yeah, 12, not 12.5. You're right. Yeah. I've seen this, but I read that wrong. You're right, 12,000.
It would be at the LD 40.
So yeah, it's good if we try to get that reapproved next year, that, you know, we've got that money out in the community and you're not gonna have to answer the questions on why are you sitting on $1 million+ and want more when you, so that, one of those goals has been met, we're allocating those dollars and getting them back out there, and
I'm hoping
some of them will be coming back,
I'm hoping in 2023, we are able to get it voted back in. And, I've heard a lot of skepticism over both pros and cons about getting that thing voted back in. So, it's definitely not a guaranteed.
Yep, there'll be some work.
What's your thoughts, or maybe you guys have any thoughts because you're hoping it'll go through, but if LB 840 goes by the wayside, what do you think the future of NCDC is?
Well, it'll have to take on a different form, certainly. You would likely have to look at potentially a private development corporation or a public-private partnership. I mean, it would be, our budget is roughly what, $80-some thousand, Kristen, right? In our current form, we're $80-some thousand with the school, the city, the county, the visitors committee, Kippahaw County and Rock County being your contributing partners. And then the rest of the funding is coming through that LB 840 contract.
Being on the board before and after the LB 840, when I was on the board, our budget wasn't keeping up with the rest of communities in the state of Nebraska. So there was quite a debate amongst, our committee, yeah, everybody was deciding where to get that money, whether we went to privates and tried to get that or go for an LB 840. And basically, we went after the LB 840 and it passed like 2 to 1. And the purpose was to improve our economic development. Everybody could see the benefit of that. So I think maybe we would just have to get back in and show what has happened with that when we go to get that back on the ballot. I think there's going to have to be some kind of effort made. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of stuff. You can point to the houses built, you gotta look at the properties that are gonna be, that they've been, that help get rid of, you know, get rid of some of the blight, if you will. Plus, I mean, there's been, I mean, I hate bringing up the COVID thing, but and I'm not sure that's exactly what we should have done, but it certainly brought a lot of, NCDC, Kristen was really responsible for a lot of funds coming into the surrounding counties besides ours. And so, I'm not sure how you measure that, you know?
There's been a
I mean, it's difficult to say, but nonetheless, at that particular time, that was one of the things. And one of the main things on the LBA 40 was that it funded the NCDC office. That was one of the top 3, I think, on that.
So there's been a group working, Brad, to kind of strategically plan for the ballot initiative and to educate the public and to get the push out there to say, here, you know, here's what this program has done, here's what it means to the community, and without it being reauthorized, we run the risk of.
It'll be sad if we don't get it in 2023. It'll be
And the
sad
nice
if
thing
we
is
don't
too,
get
Brad,
it.
I think we get it on the ballot before it sunsets, so that it's reapproved starting after that sunset date. And then if it would happen to fail, even if by a close margin, you can still get it on the ballot. You can put it on the ballot more, you're not limited to, well, we put it on the ballot once and it failed, we can't go back again. You can go back and put it on. Now, the goal would be not to have to do that, obviously. The goal would be to get it on the
It's been
ballot.
positive for our community by, you know.
Even with all the, you know, every place you go, they always say, oh, economic development can be messy, and obviously we had our messy period, and I think for the most part, that's behind us, and in the public side, it's
itself
just,
is messy, if it's even done right, it's messy, what I've seen so far.
Yeah, you're dead on.
yeah. But it's, I mean, it really has, you look at what's been done in 15 years or so through those funds, it's been a substantial improvement that's been made in numerous aspects of the community, so. I think when you start pointing at some of the things and, oh, didn't realize that was LB 840 that helped make that happen, didn't realize that was LB 840 that helped those projects get done. You know, so there's a group that's working to kind of provide that promotion of the program itself so that it's got a better potential for passage, so.
If we don't do something, you know, we're gonna be sagging behind other communities the same size as ours, or, you know, I mean, if we can't get it, you know, we're gonna be lagging behind, if you will. Because the other people are gonna have it, like we said, begin with, if you go to Norfolk and you're gonna pay a sales tax there for their economic development. When they come here, if they don't have to, you're sending money their direction, taking them out of this community, put it over there so they can help develop theirs, and you're not getting them here. So that's one of the ways that we sold that, and the fact that, you know, you're no matter what you say, you're competing with other communities for similar projects, similar economic development deals. So.
Brad, you're out there, you think the last year has been a step in the right direction based on getting some things happening again?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to see, you know, we went from that $1 million, you know, what we had in our account to where now we gotta be careful on what we fund because we might run out of money, which is a good thing. I'm glad that money is not set in a bank account and it's out there being used. It's where it needs to be.
That is something probably just, so the council's aware, we talked about this at the loan committee, but not necessarily so much at the council level, but the cash balance, as you can see on the treasurer's report, says $700,000 funded. But we've had enough projects that the council has approved that have been earmarked and not drawn down, so your actual available spending balance is $130,000.
How much?
$130,000.
But what I like about what we've done though is not just giving this money away, it's within loans that will eventually be paid back over time. So say if I know last month we gave a business startup for $400,000. Well, eventually that money's gonna start appearing back in that account so we can reuse it again with a little bit of interest. instead of just saying, we're doing all these facades and we're giving this money and we're not getting that money back. Yes, we're making our community look good, but I'm excited to see the loans going out, because we are getting that money back. So we're gonna reuse that money over time. Yes, some of them are 30-year loans, but as everybody knows, years go by pretty fast.
They're 10-year loans.
Or
Just
10.
so we clarify that.
Okay.
They're amortized over
Yeah.
30 years,
Yeah.
but they're 10-year
The
notes.
10-year.
And they could potentially refinance.
Correct.
Through all the 48 funds available.
Well, that's our pitch anyway. I know it's been a busy agenda, so if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer them. But like I said, I think it's been a positive. This last year plus has certainly been positive, I think, for the program, for, you know, for the community to see that it's functioning again well, so.
I think we've made a lot of steps in the right way over the last couple of years. I think it is going in the right direction. It's definitely going in the right direction. And I'm happy, really happy to see that.
Anybody care to make a motion on the item?
I guess it will help it continue to increase and improve and be more successful. I'd make a motion to ask for the $60,000 from LBA 40 to help fund NCDC so they can hire a part-time employee.
It'd be the contract.
The contract.
The new contract year, we just.
With a contract year starting October 1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Everybody clear on that? Any other discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Skylar?
No.
Vance?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Motion carried 3-1. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next item, discuss and consider LB 840 loan committee recommendations. We have 3 of them. First application is under 2107 for a facade improvement grant.
All 3 of these are facade applications. So this first one, for $9,782 is commercial right along Highway 20, basically. Basically, this improvement will be to their building to help kind of an existing startup business, I guess, if you will, taking an existing building and doing some improvements to it.
Everybody get a chance to look at that one?
I did not get a chance to look at these, but I did talk to Vance. He looked at it, he kind of informed me, so I'm pretty informed on these, so yeah.
I'll move that we approve, application 2107 facade improvement grant, in the amount of $9,782.
Second. Go ahead, Sean. Sean's got it.
Okay.
Motion and a second, you get your choice.
I've talked too much, you can have it.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Vance?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Skylar?
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Number 2, number 2108, facade improvement grant.
Sure. So, the loan committee did ask that I ensure the council's aware of this. These next 2 applications are essentially one building. They deliberated on that quite a bit off of the guidance from the council in December, I think it was of 2020, that was given to the committee, that the same property owner could make more than one application in a fiscal year if there was different situs addresses. So this particular building does have 2 different situs addresses, and so after they discussed it quite a bit, it was their consensus opinion that they thought it fit that guidance as being 2 different situs addresses. So they're recommending approval as 2 applications.
That was my concern too, was to me, it was one building, but it was, okay, if it has 2 different addresses, and they're comfortable with it meeting the guidelines of what was set forward in December.
but they didn't want you to be aware that that was a discussion that they had. That was their opinion, and that's why they recommended what they did.
So we have to approve these individually done too, or?
Yes, I think that would be.
If you're considering it's two acts, then yes, absolutely.
With the recommendation from the LD 40 Loan Committee, approval of application 21075 facade improvement grant in the amount of, no, 2708.
2108.
I should be doing this, see, I haven't done it. Approval of application 2108 facade improvement grant in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
Motion in the second, any other discussion? Everybody clear on which one we're voting on?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I am.
I
Call the roll.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance.
Motion carried unanimously. No, I'm sorry, I.
No, I'm,
All right, number 3, which, number 2109.
I mean, the introduction is essentially the same. The improvement that's being proposed is the same on both halves.
I'll make a motion to approve application 2109 in the amount of $10,000.
Motion in the second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad.
yes.
So who are the various applications for?
So the first application, facade improvement, 9,782 is for, I didn't bring the legal name, but it's,
Ties
Ty
taxidermy.
Conroy, Ties Taxidermy. Application 2 for $10,000 for the 21-08. Again, I didn't bring it. It's basically, it's Farm Bureau, is one half of the building, and the other half of the building is Angie Davis owns that. It's vacant at the moment. She owns both.
Oh, where Dan Lentz is doing all the work?
Downtown.
No, right
Down
down
there.
there, by her
Okay.
office,
Farm
I
Bureau.
suppose it would be the old.
Just-
That's right.
home-
Just to
Yeah.
the south of the old
Got it.
Longhorn Bar.
When you said Farm Bureau, there used to be the Farm Bureau building up there.
Yep.
Dan said, thank you.
All right, next item is the North Central Development Center quarterly report. And Kristen is here. You're up.
Okay. Just, I'm reading you guys some numbers just because it's the end of the year and you've seen all of the applications, but this is kind of a quick rundown. There were 16 applications processed, and actually as of today, there were 19, we're right over that October 1. And of those, we had 12 last year and then the 3 tonight, so 15 total that were funded. And of the ones that weren't funded, we had 2 that were denied and 2 withdrawn. And I think we had good reason for that. We've actually worked through some of that, and I think we've actually found other sources for those, just because they weren't a good fit. I think, just like the property tonight, you know, we always come up with something that seems like it might just isn't cookie cutter and it doesn't quite fit. So I think the committee's been doing a great job. I think the loan committee's done a good job in terms of making some recommendations and trying to do clarification and how do we help instead of hinder projects. So I think it's been a good year. Total amount of LBA 40 funds that have been invested in Ainsworth and Brown County, because a couple of those have been outside of the city limits, just in terms of how the city council receives that for, it was the spot is what it was. But those businesses still have a great impact upon the city of Ainsworth. So it was actually $851,247.54. And because all of these applications require a match, we never do 100%. If you take that times that 50% match, that's over $1.7 million that goes back into this community within a year. So I think it's a great showing of public and private partnerships and making some things happen. I think the downtown area has benefited. I know there are some comments about this facade. Is it one of the greatest impacts? Maybe not, but it's visible. And I think that showed up a lot in our town hall meeting a couple weeks ago. I think the community is requesting that, we're looking for beautification. That was a theme, I guess, obviously you're in those meetings with me as well, so. Thank you, I guess, and if you have questions about any of the projects, let me know. I know you've been here long enough tonight, but if anybody wants just a quick rundown, there's that. And I know you get those in your financial reports too, so. And, you know, of the categories, there were 3 categories funded. You had the business development, we had professional recruitment, demo, and facade, so those are the ones. Well. Anybody have any questions, comments?
So Greg, you said earlier about your corporation, whatever, to get going to do some housing and stuff like that, demolition. What's your projected time? Because I know we've got well, as everybody knows, we've got a lot of demolition needs to go, and I think there's people out there that are willing to probably build some houses and maybe some duplexes if we find them the property to do it.
That's
Whether we have to go
the big thing.
outside the community, expand our city limits, or what, we need to really hammer that and get some stuff done there.
Yeah.
And I
Find ways
think
to do it.
we discussed this at length, I think, today during board meeting as well. It's not only a need for residential properties, there's a need for some commercial development as well. You know, right now we have 8 different projects looking for a place to go, and we really don't have a whole lot of options. So, I mean, there are things happening, it's just sometimes they don't happen, right? So with the housing, I agree, both of those were included in the town hall meeting as well.
The main thing, Brad, I think with the corporation is it potentially unlocks LB 840 as a local funding source, but the big one it unlocks is for us to apply as a community for that rural workforce housing. Those are state dollars that can be brought in, and we can leverage those, and basically any local funding we come up with, it just throws a gasoline on it to make them have more of an impact. You know, I think with this last year, construction costs, I don't know that we'd have been in much of the housing building business anyway right now if we could, just because the costs are just so atrocious. But as those hopefully come back down, like I said, moving forward on the demo is the first step. You've got to clear the lots. Then you've got to find lots that are of of large enough size that they'll support, modern housing. And that's sometimes hard to do, but that's, if we start getting ourselves some options in town with infill, where it's city capturing property tax dollars as opposed to having to figure out infrastructure if you're building on the perimeter.
Because you want to see, what Lisa said earlier, we're only sitting on usable 137,000?
Roughly 130,000, of course.
$130,000, and we're not getting
90 tonight.
Well, that was.
Okay.
That was me figuring that these would be.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
then, we're getting roughly per month in there. So really, there's not a lot of money out there to work with any big projects anymore. So
By the
I
time
guess-
we'd be ready, Brad, I think there would be, you look at sales tax, it's been very strong in Ainsworth.
But as far as NCDC going out and starting to, look at these other projects and stuff, they have to try to, and maybe you guys are thinking about this, but figuring out other funding sources to do some of these projects, and instead of relying on LB 840, because the big dollars aren't gonna be there anymore for a while.
And that's.
Yeah, that's the rural workforce housing component, that's a huge.
You ask about, what's the time frame. One is we need to find other communities or somebody that has a corporation of the same kind that we can continue, and to get those grants from the state, we have to have a history of being able to put together projects and do it, and that all lies in the NCDC. So how do we combine what their history has been so we can got a better chance getting those grants along with a private corporation? That's gonna be one of the things, and now how you get that done, I'm not exactly sure.
So as a city, I think, it's our job to keep pushing you guys to say, get this stuff done, find this money for us so we can move on these projects and get some of these projects done.
I'd say you're right.
But like the rural workforce housing, we're actually eligible for $1 million per year. So, that's a pretty sizable chunk of change, but we have to match it. One of the other things to remember too is other sources of cash. That one, you're required to have this. They're also helping, it's workforce housing, so which employers in our community need housing? And are they willing to actually ante up? So it's not always relying upon the city. They're public-private.
Would be great.
Yeah. Did you say, Kristen, you had 8 businesses that are trying to find?
Locations, yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Some of those are existing, some of them are new, some are from within our community, some are not. So they're kind of all over the board, but
Could you say how many are within and how many are without?
obviously we're about 50-50.
Wow.
You know, you have some businesses that would really like to expand, that have wanted to expand for a few years, but right now they haven't been able to find that location. Like we talked about too, you know, I think the nuisance program has helped in, you know, I mean, obviously we've got demo projects coming in, so, you know, there's potential there, but
That vacant building, that vacant
Yes.
ordinance is gonna help on the commercial side as well. I mean, I really think that's gonna have even more of an impact than your nuisance on the commercial side, maybe not as much on the residential side,
That's
but on
been
the
a big
commercial
problem
side.
for a while. I feel like it's just
Yeah.
vacant commercial buildings that people just sit on and.
Yep.
and we need them.
Yeah.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
I mean, please don't put that on the front page of the newspaper. All real estate just doubled in value tonight.
Yeah.
But,
On your
I guess-
demos, are there any that are somewhat clustered or close, or?
So I
The
have,
one approved today potentially, or the 2 approved today,
yeah,
I think would
location
potentially
wise, it's
be,
gonna be.
I mean, but for residential,
Residential
yeah,
over.
for resident, yeah, that's what I meant, for residential, I think 2 of them we approved today would be a large enough.
So-
One of them already has a new business going in it. So, you know, one of those demo applications that we've funded, they're also one that you've done facade, so, and a new business is going in there. So that's a good,
But in terms of there could potentially be lots ready to go, big enough, say you get this rural.
For the housing, I think we
We
could have
have
a
to have
potential,
this.
yeah, I think we could have a potential first site anyway that would be large enough. One, it's not necessarily in an ideal portion, but it removes a nuisance property and it is of a large enough size that it would accommodate whether it's a duplex, whatever that first project is, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a single, you know.
we also have another couple of properties that are adjacent. There was also kind of a first, LBA 40 was our first stop. That might also be an opportunity for us, and it's in a prime location in terms of development for housing. So, I mean, some of the things, like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. Some of these are like a 3-step. Maybe they hit the nuisance list first, and then they came to LBA 40 or the ABC demo funds. And once we get it cleared up, then we at least we're making progress.
But you're right, Brad, Coupling, more than just LBA 40, so that, I think the ABC, that was a nice way to get us started on the first part, and get some of the demo done, and then go from there. 'Cause you've gotta have, to apply, you've gotta have sites buildable.
Like I say, you know, I'm tickled that we're using that LBA 40 the way it's supposed to be used, but we've used a lot of it, which is great. It's not just sitting there drawing interest, because they don't draw much interest, but,
And I hope the council's willing, if we run through that first 60 on the demo side, because again, these are 50%, so the demo assistance for that 60,000 allocated from ABC are gonna be matched privately by 60 to clear those, again, mainly nuisance properties. And, you know, if we say, hey, here's what we cleared, and here's, we're out of funds, can we?
you know, if you do that, I don't want to see that, okay, are they just empty lots? But it'd be more apt to be more money on my side available if there's actually some construction going on there, but instead of just clearing a property and now we got another empty lot in town.
It was proposed today at the NCDC meeting that even if we run out of the funds, we continue to take applications so that we can bring them to the council or whatever and say, here, we still have applications coming, do we want to pursue this project deeper?
Yeah, we need these houses gone and make the community look better, but we also need new structures on that property for, what helps the community out as a whole as far as taxes and everything else. And so,
Uses the infrastructure that's there.
yeah.
That's all we're trying to make progress. The development corp is, I think, the next thing we pursue, and then from there, and you get that structure in place, then you've got the ability to start to, you know, utilize some additional funding sources, so to try to maybe see that construction portion start to happen again. Because to me, I mean, just as one person, the housing portion of LBA 40 is the biggest thing we can point to on this renewal to say, these 4 nice homes in the community and a large commercial property are the direct result of having LBA 40 available. I mean, that's something people can go and see, oh yeah, that's this house and this house and this house, and, you know, it was 20 or 30 years since a new house had been built inside city limits. That's huge to get that happening, but it's a process.
And the increased taxes that brings onto the rolls every year too.
Yeah, your property, that's one thing we looked at was the property, this is property tax that the city generates off those 5 properties that it wasn't before.
Just the 5 that we,
Just
not all.
those 5, not any, just the 5 that were actually constructed through LBA 40 projects. That's money coming into your general fund coffers to help spread the property tax burden on all your taxpayers. So that, I mean, when you talk about, well, people are paying 0.5% sales tax, but hopefully they're seeing some more on the back end that it spreads around that property tax burden too with having that new development.
Do you have that number, what those 5 are?
What did we decide the new, yeah, we've got those 5 projects, as we presented that to the county, basically, with the county's levy, we figured the county was making an additional, I wanna say like 20-some thousand, $21,000 or $22,000 that was just going in, based off the county's current levy. The county was bringing in an extra 21 or 22,000 in property taxes, tax dollars off its levy, based on the valuation of those 5 properties alone, the 4 residential and the 1 commercial. So the city's levy is gonna be higher than the county's. The county's was running about 30 cents and yours is 45. So basically, take that times a half is gonna be, ballparking, you're gonna be over 30,000 likely that's gonna be, if you had that number,
I'm trying to
basically.
find it really quick, I'm
Yeah.
not finding it super.
Because you basically, whatever that number is, you take it divided by 100, because it's $100 and, you know, per $100 in valuation, then times it by 0.45. That'll get you, if she got the number, we can do that pretty quick. But I wanna say if the county was around 20 or 21, which is I think what we presented to them, city's gonna be probably in that $30,000 in added property tax dollars just from those 5 projects.
I may have to email them.
Okay, well,
Anyway.
you can look that up
Yeah,
another
sure.
time and let us know if you don't find it quickly. And even though we've said a lot,
Oh, I think I just found it.
Got plans.
Got it. So it was actually rated at 2.275 million was the total for just those 5.
Let's see what you said.
that's the valuation.
Yes,
That's not what the city got done.
correct,
But
but
we'll
that's,
take it.
yeah, I think Greg.
Okay, divided by 100 equals
Divided by 100 times 0.45, is that what you said?
2.75 million?
2.275.
2.275.
Yeah.
Come on, bank guy, you're better at this than me.
Well, yeah, 0.45, is that what our?
Tax rate 0.45 cents
We have $10,237.
per $100 in valuation.
That was
No,
the
total,
estimate.
when you run it through the 0.45 for valuation, so,
That was your estimate, pretty darn close.
Yeah.
yeah.
Moving on,
Thank you, everyone.
even though we've said everything that can possibly be said, I'm sure Lisa has a report.
I'll make it really quick. As it's been mentioned several times already in the town hall, I attended that, I think Brad was there for council. Overall, it was a good meeting. I think what we learned is kind of what we had assumed, anyway, you know, housing, of course, we talked about beautification, aesthetics, recreation, kind of all the same topics that have been on our radar for some time now. I think there's more to come. The strategic planning team is working on a survey and some follow-up reports and things about how to take action basically on whatever information we glean. The MFO got filed here this last month, and the city and Brown County Rural Fire, under the new rule change, will actually each receive an additional $10,000 to what we normally get, so that's happy news.
Lisa, is that the 3rd year of that last?
This is the 3rd year of our contract.
So before you do next year's, you'll have to work with the county on what you're both gonna levy for that 1 year, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was.
Yeah,
the
1 year
second or
has to
third.
match.
Yeah,
But the only,
And I think we matched our first year
yeah.
yes,
of the 3.
because the county went down from there. I don't know if you
Correct.
guys did, but the
We did
county
not.
went down, I think, a little from there.
They was at 0.5%.
But just so you're aware of that before next year, that you get on the same page.
Of course, that's September was the end of our fiscal year, so all things associated with the end of the fiscal year were done, and we completed the roll and the budget year and all of that good stuff. We're still working on cross-connection surveys, so if you have not filled it out yet, you will have a door hanger. We got them printed and they were delivered this week, so our guys are working right now to distribute them. So if you get one, please fill it out and bring it back, or if you don't want to fill it out, call us. We can do it over the phone with you, but we do need them, so please help us with that effort. We did a staff appreciation outing. Thanks to the council members who were able to come. I think it was fun. I think the employees had a good time, so.
Sounded like it was fun.
It was.
Glad you guys did that.
What I hear from the employees is they'd like to make that an annual occurrence, so thanks to the golf course also, they did a fabulous job of kind of working with us and making it a fun time. Three River, the subcommittee met. We have a draft agreement that we presented to Three River. Three River has replied back, and so we, I was just talking to Rob before the meeting, have agreed to just have legal look at it quick, and hopefully by the November meeting we'll have that agreement to look at. So, and that's just for the cable franchise, of course. So we're doing FEMA reimbursements. We submitted those requests for those dollars clear back in like February or March. NEMA's so backlogged, they have a third-party contractor helping them review those plans. So they have requested some additional information, so I'm working with them on that. Hopefully we can get that done. And really that's about it.
Oh, my God.
I'm sure there's more, but that's probably enough.
Well, thank you. Well, I think rather than asking anybody else,
I think you missed your 5:30.
I'm gonna, run clear over the extra 10 minutes you gave me, Brad.
I should give you more, huh?
We're gonna adjourn at 7:17. Thanks, everybody. So had some good discussion tonight. Long meeting, but, some of them were that way.
We haven't had a really long meeting.
This is not long, this is.
That's true.
It's not short
It's not
meetings.
bad.
Not a lot of short meetings lately.
I think the first meeting Lance and I were in was after 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
And then.
The main topics of discussion, I don't know.